Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing? Thank you guys once again for tuning in. So sorry about being on yesterday. Took the day off, had to do some errands and some personal things yesterday, so I wasn't online. But in other news, as many of you guys know, I believe it was over the weekend, the attack on the Saudi Arabia oil field. So you're starting to see some oil stocks and ETFs perform pretty well on the hyped up news. So I think it's something that's worth watching. I don't really care too much for watching it. I might look at it a little bit today. Might look at a couple things in regards to oil and some of the oil stocks, but nothing doesn't really make me super excited, I guess. Hearing about the attack on the Saudi Arabia oil fields and then oil futures skyrocket, and then to me, it's just a bunch of hype that's going to probably fade sooner than later. I really don't think we're going to see a whole big deal in terms of production going down. I mean, the United States produces so much oil these days too that I really just don't see it as a huge problem in terms of our production or in production in general. So, we'll see. Time will tell. But I think everyone's just kind of hopping on the oil bandwagon right now. And again, I just don't see it as a long-term play. I just think it's a short-term news play, just like mostly anything. Yep, UWT should be performing pretty well here this morning, or just in general from the news. Yeah, no problem, JD. DWT, that's another one. CDC Cup and Handle, UWT Thoughts, 974 Oil Crisis. High dividend stocks do you own or recommend? Honestly, I don't even know. I can't remember what my long-term portfolio stuff looks like off the top of my head. But I can point you in the right direction. What is it? DXY, DVY. Give me a second here. Yeah, you could, one of the things you might like would be possibly DVY. DVY is a ETF that tracks the Dow Jones 30 companies. Basically, it's a ETF that tracks the Dow Jones and just only has the best Dow Jones stocks in terms of dividends included in it. That's an ETF that you might like. Pretty much any any stock that pays a dividend just about 4% or a little lower than 5% is generally a pretty good pick. I could probably do some research and a video on it for you. I know I have quite a few dividend-paying stocks, ETFs, but I just don't know them all off the top of my head. But yeah, I'll probably do a video for you on that. The market's been pretty overvalued for a long time now, but doesn't necessarily mean it has to come down. All right, so I'm going to do a quick kind of run through, get to sharing my screen here. Again, took the day off yesterday, so kind of playing catch up today on some things. Don't know how much I'll actively be trading today either, but all right, so if we look at, here we go, UWT. So here's an oil ETF. Well, it's actually an ETN, but regardless. So here's an oil ETN. You can see a big volume push came in yesterday as the oil futures kind of went nuts yesterday. When oil crashed, I think it was about a year ago, this bear market move in oil, we started buying in around like $7-8 on that bounce move. I think I ended up selling up here in like 14s or 15, 16 area. Missed some more of it, but so again, I think we're just seeing kind of a short-term move in UWT and much of the oil ETFs right now, right? So here's UWT. This is generally the ETN or ETF, whatever you want to call it. This is generally the one that I would track and or trade when it comes to oil. Me personally, I know a couple other people watch like WTI, which is a lower price stock. Again, if you look at this, I mean, It didn't really trend very well yesterday. It just gapped up, had a bounce move, and then this bounce move. So there's really just two bounce moves to trade or just one trade. And again, it didn't really move all that great personally. So if you were watching it, I know there's DWT. This one's kind of an inverse of, again, UWT. And that's just kind of it. So, even if this, let me go back, even if this oil run doesn't last too long and you see the oil prices starting to roll over, right? Maybe there's going to be a long here today on UWT, but even if it doesn't last very long, starts to roll over, then you're going to have a long play on something like DWT. And then if we take a look at the oil futures, which is /CL crude, light crude, you'll see this big pop, this big push up here. Right, that was again yesterday opening after the news over the weekend, and you can see this big push up in the oil futures, and then it kind of grinded back up later in the day. So if you're going to be trading any of these these oil ETFs or stocks, it's probably best that you keep an eye on these futures to see which way they're trending. That way you can have a better idea as far as how those ETFs are going to trade for you. Exactly, Finger John. That's exactly it, right? Anytime there's like an oil spill, another oil tanker's attacked, or an oil field's attacked, right? It basically leads into a supply and demand type issue. And it's kind of sad. It really is sad because, honestly, if you think about it, anything that has to do with oil, whenever there's an attack like this, it just honestly goes to show how terrible the human race is, because we consistently go to war over money. I mean, that's really just it. It's just little humans going to war over money and greed. It's kind of disgusting at this point. That was big portion of the war in Afghanistan was money and oil. The attack on the Saudi Arabia plant, granted, I don't even know who it's coming from. There's been so much back and forth about it. Not really trying to get into the whole political side of it. But again, it's just war for money, nonsense, death. It's just pointless at this point. So again, it's just a power-hungry move by someone, and I'm sure we'll find out eventually. But it sucks. It sucks that that's the world we live in. But it is what it is. Maybe if we could just all go to solar energy or something like that, then we'll eliminate more wars. But then someone will probably kill someone for solar energy or something. But again, we're here to make money. So it's a supply and demand type issue. Whenever there's an attack or something has to do with oil, again, it usually comes from some government body, some type of attack for power, and then it will drop the amount of supply, or the production levels will go down, which then, of course, as demand increases or there's a consistent amount of demand with a low supply, generally the prices the price per barrel is going to go up. Therefore, just in general, gas prices may go up or see a short-term price fluctuation increase. There's usually going to be an instant reaction into the market. Whether that hits the consumer as quick, it usually doesn't happen, right? So as soon as something like this happens, the oil markets, in terms of the actual market, will pretty much have an instantaneous reaction, whereas you may or may not see it into like the gas pumps initially. All right, give me a second here, just kind of reading some questions here. So Shane, in regards to the video that was made yesterday about the Ponzi scheme video, it's sad. There's really, there's a couple approaches, and none of them are good. There is no good approach. It's like this. It's like, your friend has a bunch of faith in you, and you tell him you can do something, and then, he comes back 1 year later to find out that you completely botched the job that you're supposed to do for him, and it's either going to cost him more money, or say you were working on his house, or his house is going to look like shit regardless. So, it's just one of those situations where it's just effed, and the government dropped the ball big. So, you're really two options. You really can't even... it's possible. I didn't want to go that route. That's not what we should talk about. It's possible to opt out of the Social Security system, but then you have to get rid of your Social Security card, and you have to basically deny yourself from any get. That's a long road you don't want to go down. But really, the option is either you cut benefits of the Social Security program, which means all the beneficiaries right now are going to receive less money, and try telling someone they're going to receive less money. First off, it doesn't work very well when you try to give someone less money that they've already been getting, right? Imagine going to work today and your boss is like, yeah, well, you know what? I screwed up, so I'm just going to pay you less. Even though you deserve this, I'm going to pay you less. It's not going to go over very well. Or the other option is to continue to raise taxes on the younger class or the people paying in so that they can continue to move on this Ponzi scheme. That's basically your two options at this point until it completely implodes and then something ginormous happens. But those are really the two, go-to options. Either cut the benefit spending to the beneficiaries and the people collecting, and or raise taxes again to continue to fulfill the current amount of beneficiaries while trying to add to the surplus so that one day we can get back on track to having enough money in the Social Security program, which most likely won't happen because the government effed everything up and they spend the surplus. So the government's already spent the surplus of the Social Security, which basically means they just replace it with Treasury note IOUs, and we all know that's bullshit too. So again, it's a really botched program at this point, and it's sad. It's very sad. There's much more to it too. All right, so I want to talk next on just Netflix. I'm just going to touch real quick on this because not that it's going to be the greatest trader today, but if you look at Netflix, and we've kind of been watching it for a while now, but if you look at it, it's kind of starting this rounding bottom, right? You can kind of see we've tried to press lower, we're rounding. We got a lot of lower wicks in here, lower wick, kind of a double bottom lower wick scenario here on the 4-hour chart, rounding up. So we're starting to see a little bit of a rounding formation, and I believe if the market continues to hold towards highs, we don't go into an absolute bearish move, we're probably going to start seeing more bullish movement on Netflix soon. We're going to stop kind of seeing this bearish kind of downward consolidation. We're going to start kind of shifting back to an upward trending move. So I think, today I was going to watch it long bias just in case we get a move, but I think we're starting to see that formation of more long momentum into Netflix, which I like. Okay. And then secondly, I want to touch on OSTK. OSTK is a potential play for me today that I was going to watch. This one was a little bit more of an optimistic play where we've had this 2-day beat down, and I was going to see if we get just kind of a short squeeze day, right? We've gotten beaten down for 2 days, bad, and I just want to see if today maybe we get a little bit of a push to the upside on OSTK. Not a trending move, if so, great, but just sort of a long play out of the gate or, relatively, today on OSTK after we've had the 2-day $10 just absolute shit show. So that's something that I'll be watching pretty closely here. Excuse me, let me drop this down. I don't really need that. And then also another play that I've been keeping an eye on that we've been watching for a long time is ULTA. ULTA for a move lower. Again, if you look at the 4-hour chart, it's still trending down, and it's just trying to break this like 225, 224. And I believe if we can start snapping down, we're going to run into a nice downward leg. Because we tried to bounce here, and then we just kind of stopped trying to bounce. Now we're kind of just pushing down. I believe we go into a downward leg here, personally. Let's see. Yep. So that's and I was thinking about making a video on that too. Maybe I will, about how natural gas tends to have a little bit of a price jump or price increase as you go into winter. But don't think it has to be like last winter either. Last winter there's a big bubble in the natural gas push, but don't think it has to do the same thing or even remotely close. Excuse me. When do I see the oil momentum fading out? I mean, that's basically an impossible question. Whenever people want to stop buying in, which is impossible to answer. Best thing you can do is watch charts and price action. Yeah, I see news about that Netflix was going to get Seinfeld, or they already got all the rights to the 180 episodes of Seinfeld. Um, you would, I mean, if I were, I mean, I would just put it self-employed. You're self-employed running your own business that's all you're doing. Really, all you're doing as a trader is running your own business in theory. That's basically it. So just put down you're a business owner. All of you. That's all you're doing. Just running a business out of your house. How do you find the right stocks to trade? Million ways how to do that. All depends on the trader themselves. So really, Juan Lopez, what you're in right now is what it sounds like is the beginning stages of finding out, who you are, right? Do you like women with blonde hair or brown hair or blue eyes? Do you like ones that dance? They like drink wine. They like to play video games. That's what you're doing. You're basically searching for your soulmate in the stock market. So you got to find for yourself, is it penny stocks you like? Is it large caps you like? Is it, ETFs that you like trading? Are you a double bottom, short trader, long trader? Those are all the things that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. No one's going to be able to help you identify what exactly you like. We could give you a list of things to maybe look at or think about. But ultimately, it's up to you to figure out what it is exactly you like to trade, right? So how do you find the right stocks to trade? If you don't trade penny stocks, then there's no point of trying to find the right penny stock to trade because it's not right for you. But generally, it all comes down to scanning. Not even scanning. Yeah, actually, no, it's back to square one. It comes down to finding out what exactly you want to trade. If you want to short things, then you need to look for bearish short setups. If you like to long things, you need to be looking for long bias setups, right? If you like penny stocks, then you only need to be scanning for stocks basically below like $5 and $10. So again, really got to pinpoint what it is you want to trade. CLF. Sure, let's take a look. Yeah, Cleveland Cliffs is actually a stock that's in Michael Burry's portfolio, which is the guy from The Big Short. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see it going higher, but in terms of where it's at now, I mean, it's definitely a good trade that you made because if you bought in, you're already up 20%. I mean, that's really up to you. I mean, are you trying to hold the stock long term or are you a trader? If you're a trader and you're up 20%, sell 75% of your position and let the rest ride if you want. But I mean, that's really just it, right? That's a problem with trading too, is people get involved in a good trade and then they want to switch up what they're originally there to do, right? It's kind of like in the movies when you see them rob a bank, right? Or there's a money heist. And they come to get $100 million, and then they open the bank vault and they see there's $1 billion. And all of a sudden they start trying to take more money or more gold, and they're deviating from their plan, which usually results in them taking more time, which then sets them off course, and then they end up getting caught because they didn't stick to the plan. So again, you ask yourself, what are you in it for? Are you in it for a trade? Were you in it for a day trade, a swing trade, or a long-term position? So if you're up 20%, but you're there for long-term, then you shouldn't even be looking at the stock. It is what it is, right? If it was a swing trade and you're up 20%, sell 75%, let the rest ride, and be happy with it, right? So again, always try to remember what you're doing it for, and that will always help you in the trade of what you should be doing. But right now, I mean, it is more bullish than it is bearish, and I could see a little bit more upwards move, but I would say where it's currently at in terms of the charting, this is a good short-term selling point. Vikram already went over Netflix. I like Netflix personally with the way it's been moving. But yeah. How would you play the VIX? I don't actually play the VIX, the volatility index. I mean, you can buy options on the volatility index, but you don't actually trade the actual VIX like with shares. But you can trade options on the VIX, but the VIX pretty much is just implied volatility for the overall market. So it gives you a good understanding as how volatile the overall market is on any given day. And that will basically just trickle on over into stocks as well. So ideally, the VIX is just there for you to understand implied volatility for the overall market, which means you could trade TVIX or any sort of volatility index or index ETF. I do recommend a stock scanner like Trade Ideas because the capabilities on Trade Ideas are just far better than Thinkorswim. Thinkorswim, I mean, is good. But again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to scan for penny stocks hitting high a day, like right now, best scanner you can probably use is going to be Trade Ideas, maybe even equity feeds. Never mess around with equity feeds too much, but I do have some scanners that will be putting out some videos on here on YouTube soon. But there is a high-a-day scanner and there is a low-a-day scanner, but again, they don't work the way that like you'd really, really hope for. They do find stocks reaching high-a-day, but they're still not perfect because it's just really hard to create a good high-a-day, good low-a-day scanner on Thinkorswim. There always seems to be something that's off, but it's pretty much to the point where it's enough, and I'm not gonna, mess them too. They're pretty much as good as they're going to get is what it seems like. But anyways, we'll have a video on about that, and you can always tweak them and play with them as much as you can to see if it will get better. But yeah, like Trade Ideas is far better than Thinkorswim. Pricey, absolutely pricey, but again, it just is what it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 8:59, so I'm going to get ready to head back to our private group now. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in, and feel free to join us into one of our private groups if you would like. All the links will be in the description below of this video or the stream or any video on YouTube if you'd like to join us. So again, feel free to do so. In other words, I will see you guys all tomorrow morning for another stream. Take care.